Heyo. How's it going?
It's going.
Yeah, is it one of those days?
It's just a lot, but that's okay.
Yeah. Is it from all the other classes?
No,
Oh.
it's, well, yes and no. It's a bunch of things. It's a mixture of real life things and class things.
Yeah. I mean, I could see both of those. I'm behind on sending some stuff to some people, and you're like, well, and you're like, I'm literally at home all the time. Like, why am I not, on top of this? And you're like, well, because I'm doing
Nope.
all of the other hundreds of other things that keep getting shoved on my desk. So,
Yeah, it's great.
yeah, fun times, right?
Mhm.
Our class is really small right now, so I'm gonna give it a few minutes because I think there's 15 people here and there are 23 people in class. So, have you started reading the book just for reference?
No, when is that again? Is it next week?
No,
Or
it's
is
like
it
May
2 weeks?
1st. Yeah, it's like 2 3
Okay.
weeks.
Okay. Cool. Fantastic. No, I have not.
It should come with a bit of a warning on it. Like chapter 2 is like father abuse and thing, like he's abusing it. It's like whoa.
Oh,
Has anybody read The Glass Castle?
I have.
So
I read it at your house.
oh, because it's such a good book. Anyways,
It is.
I will say that The Glass Castle is the Glass Castle is like very narrative, and so it's kind of like it's like a story, and then you're like, oh, but it's nonfiction. This particular memoir is not narrative, and it's very much more of like this expose type of feel where you're like, oh, here's a spotlight on the bad things, and you're like, oh, okay, yeah, crazy stuff's happening. So look forward to that one.
Oh Lord! All right.
Anyways,
Yay.
okay. Okay. I mean, not everybody's on. We have people on. And I hope they continue to get on. It's that time of year and well, it's that time. It's in the class. We're all online, so everything's crazy. I wanted to start talking about before we got like this is my recappy stuff. So I'm still reading your papers. I'm not done, so that's why you don't see grades out there. Lots of stuff is happening, and I'm trying to take time to read them and thoroughly, not just slap a grade. So I'm not very far. I think I've read like 2 or 3 of them, and slowly working my way through them because I'm also trying to. Anyways, so I'm working through them. I will get your grades out there as soon as I get that done. I mean, my goal is I have another meeting today at 4, but would be to keep reading until I finish these. The second point I want to talk about was so your final project is it's shifted because we're online. And so I originally it was this big presentation, and I'm not making you present something, but I realized I also probably need to modify the project in general, because literally it was, hey, you're going to tell me all these things in this presentation. I don't need another paper because you're going to present it to me. And so now you're not presenting it to me, so I'm probably going to need to ask you to convey that information back to me some way. And so I have 2 lines, and Jacob had asked me about it after class, and so I don't exactly remember what 2 options I told Jacob, and he said he would remind me today. So Jacob, do you remember what 2 options I gave you, or no? Can't tell if he's on. He's not unmuting himself. How can we say that? And nobody's chatting. Okay, so basically, and I don't have perfectly here. So originally it was you are supposed to create some kind of marketing campaign for a new product or an existing product for your firm, and you were supposed to talk about in your presentation was who's the customer base, show understanding of your firm and how it would be an expansion or how it would be successful, talk about how it's in line with their current marketing. This is all out online. I'm not telling you anything that you shouldn't have already read. It have access to all of these new products and how it's going to fit in with their strategy. So basically tying it into like all of this stuff that we've done up until this point, right? Like how is it tied into what the firm is trying to do? How is the messaging that you're going to do is consistent with that, with their current messaging? Because I can't see you present, and I'm not asking you to go, especially because you're all in different places and different times, and it's probably going to be really hard to like coordinate that. I'm not asking for a presentation. but I do still want the project. And so what I think I'm going to have you do is just write me something like 3 to 5 pages and basically describing all those things that you normally would have presented on. So just tell me what you were going to tell me. It still needs to be some kind of average. So originally what normal people did was they created some kind of advertising campaign and then they sent that to me, and that was what they turned in. I would still like to see something like that. Like if you're doing some kind of marketing, some kind of project, if you send me some kind of version of that. But at this point, you just have to give the narrative to me because we're not presenting that narrative.
So you remember how we talked last Thursday, and you asked me, I wanted to bring it back up, whether you wanted, because we were going to do a class vote, I guess, on it, like whether we wanted to do the final part on doing an analysis of the marketing strategy or creating a product and doing that instead.
That was it. I guess I asked Jacob. You weren't on when I first asked you.
Sorry.
I called you out, Jacob, and I was like, I don't think he's there. No. So Jacob had asked me, and I had said, okay, well, here's 2 ways we can go with this. And so I'm glad that he recalled us back out. One was do exactly what we just got through saying, which is where you create some kind of advertising campaign, you create it, and you move forward. Another way, maybe to modify that for this time and place that we're in, is instead of this creation of something new, is that you give me, and at that point it'd be maybe a 5-page document describing their marketing campaigns, their marketing, how they're marketing, how they're being successful, basically an analysis of their marketing and advertising strategies as a firm. And in terms of like all the other things where we're going to talk about demographics, we're going to talk about the marketing types that you were all supposed to have looked at. So I'm going to recap in a short version. We're about to vote. I'm going to need little hands or little happy faces or chats. I don't care which way we vote. I would poll you all, but I think you have to have like a certain version of Zoom. So I'm not requiring anyways. Short version of this is what we have right now, which is you create an advertising campaign or advertising market for a new product or an existing product. You defend it and you write me some kind of narrative, 3 to 5 pages narrative, but you also include some kind of marketing version. So it's a PowerPoint or PDF of some kind of like, here's the ad, right? Or whatever you want. The second question is we can change that and say, hey, instead of doing that, you give me some kind of 5-page, at least minimum 5-page expose of like their advertising strategies in the world and how that's suited for their firm and how the firm has used those, whether successfully or not. Just kind of like an analysis of their advertising. So an analysis or you're creating a product. Either way, you're going to have to write me some kind of document, which is not recorded online right now. So if you look online, it's not it. I'm going to send a little update. But so I need to know what you would prefer. And the reason why, and I'm trying to be flexible because this is unprecedented times. You're all having, other than Matthew, who I think is the only person who has a project by himself because he's getting grad credit for it. Everybody else is, you have groups, you're all across the, wherever you might be at home. And I recognize that I'm trying to be responsible with your time and not asking you to do things that you're not going to be feasible for. So let's take a vote. Actually, do y'all want to have a discussion? Does anybody want to have comments or ways you might want to argue or convince other people to do things?
The first option, like you said, create like a product. So is it like a totally new product or something that they already have out there and we just like make an advertisement for that?
It's a whole new world. You can do it either way. You can do a new existing product and show some kind of like some kind of advertising campaign for that. Like, so maybe it's you do Kraft Heinz, right? Yeah, like, and let's say they have a new ketchup. I'm making it up, right? Some kind of new. They have the mayo up, ketchup mayo mix. They're on the shelves, right? So if you're like, hey, listen, we want to have an advertising campaign for that, and then you justify like how this advertising campaign is going to be in line with Kraft Heinz, other stuff. You're going to talk about why advertising is going to be successful. That's fine. That could be group number 1. You could literally also create a whole new product where you say they're going to create. Heinz is going to come up with a new dipping sauce that's made out of chocolate and peanut butter goodness, gooey goodness, and right, but you would have to justify like why that fits in with their current product lines. You'd have to justify like why that would be a good product that they would create and what kind of advertising they would do. That's like number 1. Number 2 would be, and I don't know, I'm doing yours, but like number 2 would be, hey, let's talk about Kraft Heinz and the type of advertising they do. Let's talk about their feelings in the market. Let's talk about how people approach them. Let's talk about what types of advertising, what social media. Let's talk about, you know, are they all of those types of things, and we're going to do some kind of exposition of those. That's the 2 choices. That was a very good example of that. Does anybody want to have comments about it before we vote? Well, Jacob's already voting, but does anybody have any comments on it? No? Okay, so you all can do the little thumbs up on the little like reaction things, right? Okay, well, I see the people who have videos. So let's do a reaction. If you want to vote for the first option, put a little thumbs up. Thumbs up for me. I gotta count people who are not. Oh, they're all going away. Oh no. It seemed like that was a vote that won. Can everybody let those all go away for a second? If you can take your little, I don't know how to make them. If you can now vote for number 2, if you want to put the little thumbs up. Okay, so I'm sorry, but the first option wins. So it's going to be basically sticking with what we have. So that's you're going to either create a product or you're going to use a product that's on the market. You're going to create some kind of advertising campaign. A lot of people, it was easy just to do something in PowerPoint, just create a PowerPoint slide and do something. I don't care. I'm not telling you how to do it. You can do an advertisement. You can create an image of a Goodyear blimp and explain why this is going to be. But remember, you have to justify why it fits in line with their advertising campaign. So, you know, I just got through reading about what brand owns Massey Ferguson, I can't say it, so I should pick a different firm. You have to justify like why that's in their interest and why that would be a good advertising campaign. And you can't just be like, yeah, because this is what they're doing. You're like, okay, but they, you know, it doesn't fit in line with their stuff. So I will send an update on project. And if your group members weren't on, because we don't have quite everybody on here today, just make sure that, you know, your group might know. So like, I think like Kayla right now, I think is having some issues accessing the internet. So like Marilyn and Jordan, if you want to talk to Kayla, make sure that she knows. Update and final project. So it's going to be minimum 3-page, explain, and your ad. Okay, I'll send that out so you'll see that kind of written out, updated for that project. Okay, that was that's still due the last day of class. I think we're gonna have the final. I don't know. Did we already talk about that? I think you were already having the final, like the last day of class, I think too. So, or the last day of class, well, the last week. Are there any other like, I don't know, housekeeping notes that we need to make? No, I think that was it. I think it was just final project, so I didn't want to run down that path before we moved on. Okay, so before we jump to my notes, you all were supposed to go look at a document called, I'm about 52 types of marketing strategies, and we were supposed to talk about them today, and I said, hey, be prepared to talk about some. I think we even voted on you talking about them. So let me see. Let's be easy. Participants. Oh, I don't know how this works. Okay, so I wonder how they choose who to put in what list, like this. So there are 52 different types of marketing strategies that were on this list. This was, I don't remember where I found it, but I thought it was nice because it's literally all the types of, you know, you hear these names, you hear them, especially in advertising world, and at least just an idea of that there are terms for what these are. So let's do it like not super quickly. I mean, like we can go quick. So I'm gonna start a list because it'll make it easier to like call people out. Matthew, do you want to tell? Yeah, I just opened the participant list, and you're for some reason at the top of that list. So sorry, man. Which strategy did you find and read and thought was interesting?
Yeah, I picked out a few. The first one though, I'll just go one. It was event marketing.
Yeah.
And I think in that it used the example of the Macy's Day Parade,
Yeah.
for Thanksgiving, which makes sense, is an obvious choice. But what I relate it to, because I've worked in sports turf for so long, is the naming of stadiums. So it's a sponsorship. So like I've been at a few different sports teams, and like when I worked with the Titans, is when we switched to Nissan. So that was $100 million deal over 20 years. So Nissan pays $5 million a year to have a name on the stadium. So when people walk in, they see Nissan everywhere.
Yeah, and it's successful. I mean, like we don't think about how oftentimes brand marketing really does, like seeing those names all the time, like really does, associate with like, oh, sure, I want to do these things, or that how successful that is, and just in getting into your subliminal branding. Thank you, Matthew. I literally am just trying to like. Thank you. That was super perfect. Just an idea, like a short rundown of whichever one you picked. Because we're not going to talk about all 52, but I think it's nice to be able to talk about them because they will be on your exam. I just guarantee you that I'm going to ask you of some sort. So just pay attention to what these are. Let's see. How did he get? See, now you're not at the top of my list. Maybe it's who's unmuted.
I'll go next.
Oh, Connor wants to go next. He's like, I want to do the one I want to do.
Yeah, get it over with.
Yeah. Okay, Connor.
I like the trade show one. Trade show marketing. Because with agriculture, there's a lot of trade shows, and that's where they showcase their new products. They usually give out a lot of free stuff. So I just found that to be the interesting one.
No, I like it. And I think that like with ag stuff, I think it's really relevant because sometimes we use the same types of products, or like I think my grandpa doesn't own like new tractor implements, right? But like going to like a trade show would be like, I can go and touch and see and feel, and then maybe have an idea that I might purchase that. And I think free swag also.
More like hands-on stuff, like you can like get on it and the equipment and stuff. It's pretty cool.
No, I completely agree. I remember also I did FFA in high school, and I remember going to FFA convention, and it was like that. It was like this big trade show of like getting to see and touch and all the things that they left out. I will pick somebody else unless somebody else wants to volunteer really quick.
I'll go next.
Okay, Christina. I see you're also hand Maryland. You can scoot next. Okay, Christina.
Well, I had trade show marketing at first, so I had to go and find another one. And so I chose the social media marketing because that's something I feel like we all experience every single day, whether it's, our phones listening to us, and then the next thing we know, we have an ad for something that we literally just said one time, or what it is. But on the thing, I thought it was interesting because it still says it's in its infancy, but like I said, I feel like it's something we all experience every day.
Yeah. And it might have been like, first of all, I don't know when this was written, so it might have been like kind of at the forefront of this, or just that you think that really the type of social media marketing that we're aware of, or like kind of is pretty new still. I mean, like relative to these other things, like trade shows have been around. There were trade shows in the 1800s, right? Like this is, the World's Fair was a type of trade show, right? They didn't have social media marketing where they're like, hey, you mentioned bug gun shooters the other day. Let me show you an ad for a salt gun shooter, or I think it's funny sometimes from talking in class about the news, like I'll get food news, like they'll give me like new food things popping up because I've talked to you about them, even if I don't care about it at all. So yeah, no, I think that's super, it's interesting of how fast things are moving. And I think how we continue to adapt to new technologies and how that is both good and bad in terms of marketing and our invasion of privacy as well. That's all that out there. Anyways, Mary Lynn, you were next.
Yeah. So I picked evangelism marketing, which I was drawn to because of the name. I think that's a really interesting thing to call it.
Yeah, legit.
But it's basically just when they, like, I thought it was interesting because it's like, in my opinion, the ultimate success if you can sell your product on someone so well enough that they'll just be like salesmen for you and they'll advocate it like out the wazoo. And I think just like Christina said, like that's everywhere right now. Like you see Nike everywhere, you see Apple everywhere, and people will like get in fights with other people based on that brand, and it's crazy. But yeah, it's everywhere, I think. So.
No, I think that I remember reading that one and thinking I like the name of it, and I think I've used it in normal conversation before. I have a friend who's still part of a startup who works on esports. And I actually was talking to him, and I use this as an example. So again, this is not just, ag, cows, plows, and chows, hicks, chickens, sticks. Like, I was like, you were doing evangelism advertising. Like, you are marketing this as like, oh, this is an amazing. You're going to tell everybody why they should also go do the same thing and work on esports and invest in esports and be all these things. It's like, that's what you're doing, is you're evangelizing the world. I think that's such a, I think I associate that term more so with like religious views. And so it's kind of interesting to see it like outside of religion and using just for the definition of what it is, which is just spreading a message that you have in the world. And I think the same thing that we see it all the time. Anyways, I had a comment here. I can't stop. Okay. Does anybody else want to volunteer, or I'll just start calling people on?
Yeah, I'll go next.
Okay, Brandon.
The first one I saw was just email marketing. And I think a lot of times anytime I go to a store, they're like, you'll get so much off if you give us your email. Or even ordering pizzas or something like that. They're like, put in your email where we can contact you or tell you when your pizza's leaving or are going to be there. And so now you have like 1,000 emails from Domino's Pizza or any store like that.
Yeah, no, it's totally, and it's successful, right? Like I think of during this outbreak, how many emails I've gotten, and I've been like, I don't know, I've been like online shopping. I mean, I buy a lot, but like, because I see them and I have to delete them, or I have to spend the effort to go like unsubscribe to them. And I think it's a way of both getting information, but like also having some kind of contact with you and saying like, these are our customers, and sending out advertisements. Like, how many of you have gotten some kind of coupon or something from somebody you bought from at some point, and you're like, I don't know, I mean, I guess I'll go ahead and take this, I'll get my free pizza. Yeah, see, I see Nathan's hand. I can't see anybody else's hand, but I'm gonna assume that you all have gotten something and it's been beneficial. Thank you, Brandon, for sharing. I think Caleb had his unmuted a minute ago. Do you want to go next, Caleb?
Yeah, sure, I will. I looked at the scarcity marketing. It was basically talking about how there's value in, like, the example it used was Rolls-Royce cars, and saying like there was only, say, 1,000 of these cars made. They kind of market it kind of like, get it while you can, versus I guess like a Toyota Corolla car where there's millions of them out, and they're, it's a different type of marketing there.
Yeah, I think I don't know that we do that in ag a lot. I mean, I can't think of like something in ag where it's like, you can only buy the seed. There's only 10 of them. And then after that, you're out of luck. But I can think about it in, like, I think clothing does that. I think like fancy shoe people, I think they do that where they like only come out with like so many of them and then you're just out of luck. I mean, can somebody think of an ag example? Am I being? Yeah, okay. You think of one.
Would Boar's Head count? Like you said, they only go with like select retailers, so you can only get it certain places.
Let me think about that.
I have an example in the turf world.
Okay, I'm gonna come. Hold on a second, Maddie. Yeah, Boar's Head, I could see it with the idea of like they're only marketing to some things, but I think with the scarcity, it's like literally there is only a limited amount being produced. So I can maybe tangentially see where like it's like Boar's Head, you're like, hey, you have to go to these stores, and if you don't go to these stores, you can't get Boar's Head.
What about
it's a premium.
Blanton's whiskey? They only make like a certain amount, so sometimes you can find a bottle for like $60, but then eventually it gets up to like $200 a bottle.
Yeah, that's a perfect example. That right there is an example of that. Matthew, did you have an example?
Yeah, my example is like turf related though. It's not. I mean, it's part of agriculture, I guess, but sod. So like I used to buy sod for like NFL stadiums and stuff like that. I had to buy that over a year in advance because there's so few people that make it. And then like they only have so many acres dedicated and it takes over a year to grow. So like you can't just call like tomorrow and say, hey, I need a new field. So like you basically have to pay a premium to basically get this field, like you reserve it. And whether you use it or not, you end up paying like $300,000 for it. So but it's basically like play ready. Like you can put it down and have a game on it tomorrow because
That's
it's
crazy.
so thick and the way it's grown.
That's interesting. Thank you for sharing that. Like I don't put a lot of effort and then I don't know enough about, but that's you start learning about, I think when people start sharing their experiences, like a whole new world. That was interesting. Also crazy expensive, just on that out there. Okay. Does anybody else?
The brand lover marketing. It's kind of like brands that end up not necessarily like dying off, but they can't necessarily sustain themselves from marketing. So like the people who like I guess a good thing would be Twinkies, but like or like older tractor companies like Minneapolis Moline or like those type of companies that like their marketing and stuff is so weak or their brand dies off, but then they have like a cult following or like they call them brand lovers that like help support that company. So like that type of thing.
Huh. Yeah.
In
So
there, it
like
has a
people.
picture of somebody with a Volkswagen tattooed on their arm. So
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Like is it? That's probably a good example. I'm gonna like look for that ad. No, I think that's a great example. I don't remember all of these. I did read them all at one point, but no, I think that's an interesting one because it's like I think we have that where people. What was the Surge? Surge was a big like that, right? Like which I know isn't it's a product that Coca-Cola owned, but like it died off, and then there were all these people who were like love Surge, and they kept talking about it, and it was like this cult following behind this the brand of Surge, and then eventually they came back and started producing it on Amazon, but it was a deal that they had only limited amounts of production. So I think it ties in all of these things. Anyways, thank you, Jacob. Does anybody else want to go, or do you want me to start picking on people?
I'll go.
Okie dokie, Riley.
What I had was direct mail marketing, which is basically what it sounds like. It's basically mailing stuff directly to the customers, such as catalogs. And first thing I thought of was the Fast Line magazines, where they send them out, and they got all these tractors in there for sale, and hunting catalogs such as like Bass Pro Shop, Cabela's, stuff like that.
Yeah, and they're still super successful, right? Like I think a lot of direct mailing, like those catalogs for a lot of companies like JCPenney's or Sears like that, I don't think they found so much success. But I would argue that like sporty, I mean, I go to my dad's house and he still has Cabela magazines and he still looks at them. So I'd argue that that's still successful in some ways.
I usually get them about once a year, probably.
Yeah.
Magazines from hunting like Cabela stuff.
I wonder if that will change with like demographic, like if as people move away from like printed press and media and they want electronic versions, because there's some kind of nice about being able to flip through one, right? Like flip through something physical versus on a computer or on a tablet or phone or something. Anyways.
Probably some change is going to happen probably.
Yeah.
But they might be a few out there who still want the magazines. You can't tell.
There's always the laggards, right, in our technology adoption curves. Anyways, thank you, Riley, for sharing that. Okay, who wants to go next?
I'll go.
Okay, Jordan.
Wait, have we already said personalized marketing?
We have not. Do you want to tell me what it is?
Yes. Okay. So, personalized marketing. Oops, let me go back to it. It's like where they market towards like having your name on something or just being able to like personalize it like specifically for you, so like you're the only one that has it. Their example was Nike ID. You know how you can like put your name on it or like colors you want or whatever. But my example was there's this new like hair care company called Function of Beauty, and their whole concept is like you pick the color on the bottle, like your name's on the bottle, and then it's like customized perfectly for you, like whatever type of hair type you want and like whatever hair success you want. So it's like specifically for you.
I mean, that's great advertising, great marketing. And like, I see Matthew kind of smirking because I'm guessing he's probably not going to go purchase this product.
It's meant to, so you can put that up.
Yeah, like you could find the thing that works for you, Matthew. No, but but I do think that like, you know, that there are ways that like, I mean, I do think that would be super successful, right? Like I have, you know, people have certain hairs or they want to have a unique experience. And I think that ties into that. And if you're willing to market that, I think, I didn't know they did this one with hair. I've seen the advertisements for like vitamins for like you individually.
Oh yes, and they've I know what you're talking about, and they've your name on that too, and like in little packets of what you want.
Yeah, like I haven't bought them, but I see them. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting, and then I just I moved on. But like, I mean, like that would be a great way of personalized marketing, because again, what you do is you get somebody, and let's say that somebody buys into, they like it. Now they're evangelizing about their product. So just saying. I can get back to you, Marilyn. You just thank you, Jordan, for sharing personal marketing. I think Alexis Walker had taken her little microphone off and wanted to say something. Did you want to, Alexis?
Yeah, I had word of mouth marketing,
Mm-hmm.
and I just found it interesting because everything now is so online and email and everything. But me personally, if I hear something from a friend, I'm definitely going to try that than just from an ad that I get. And it also said that it was an ancient thing, which obviously, they didn't have email back in the day. So I just thought that was really interesting, that it's still really a productive way to market things.
Yeah, like when we at Hillshire, I mean, even with social media, with all of these other ways, like our big deal was we wanted people to talk about what we were doing or what we were selling, because like if and the opposite is the same, like, so we don't want one person will basically infect like something up to like it was, let's say like 100 people if they had a bad experience, and so they're going to spread it around if they have bad experiences, and one person will spread it out to like 10 people if they really had a good experience, or like, and so what you want is you want to minimize all bad experiences, because it's going to spread a little bit further for bad experiences, and you really want to prop up the good ones. But I'm the same way. Like, I mean, I've looked at reviews online for products, and I kind of was like, I don't know. And then somebody told me in person that they really liked something. You're like, okay, well, I'll try it now because you liked it, and I know and trust you more than I know and trust some anonymous person online who hated it, So yeah, thank you for that, sharing that, Alexis. Interesting. Anybody next, or you want me to start calling people out?
I can do one.
Okay, Nathan.
So I was gonna do word of mouth too, but that's okay. There's I liked freebie marketing and then also content marketing. I'm gonna kind of put them together. So like some of you, I guess Chris probably knows. I'm in a band, and I'm kind of like in charge of our social media account and like basically all of like our like marketing. I mean, we're small, like four college dudes playing stuff, so it's not like I'm trying to like contact like Madison Square Garden or anything like that. But anyway, we just made a bunch of merchandise, and there's a couple guys, like we had like sent out a bunch of like pictures and stuff. I was like, oh, come like buy our merch, whatever, and did that whole big thing. And then there's a couple people who we're gonna give a couple like a hat and a shirt for free, and then kind of have them be like, like all you gotta just like tell everyone about us, like this, like wear it proudly, like it's a cool hat, cool shirt, and just like spread the word or whatever. And so that's kind of like the freebie. And then the other part of that I think kind of connects is that like content marketing is kind of what we're doing. Part of the reason we're doing the shirts is just like we're just trying, especially right now, we're just trying to like throw out as much as we can. Like we've been trying to put a lot of stuff on our page and stuff, and doing the shirts. I'm literally sitting on my bed right now. Is like that's another kind of like content that we're trying to do that like might generate a little money so that we can like master some songs to send out. So anyways, I just thought those were kind of related to a personal.
No, that's super fun. Thanks. I mean, like it's super interesting. I'm gonna type that. We're gonna have to come back to this band thing, Nathan, because I think this is interesting. But not right now. We're talking about advertising and marketing strategies. But freebie advertising is a huge way to do it. I mean, this is exactly why we always talk about you see like rich people getting all these free things, and people always get mad. It's like, why are you giving it to the rich people? Like, why don't you give it to the person who can't afford it? And it's like, well, yeah, but that person is going to, every time they wear that hat or that shirt, 1,000 people are going to see that, right? And it's the same reason why Nissan pays $5 million a year to have their name on the Titan Stadium, because the more you see it, the more you're aware of it, especially if you have cool, something neat that people also want to have. And it's, so I think this is the same reason why people have pins with their names on it, because just the more and more you see them. And then, with content, just getting it out there. I like that it's a personal example too. So thank you for sharing that, Nathan. I mean, I will keep talking about all of these, but okay, who wants to go next? Or do you want me to start calling people?
I can go.
Let's go, Ethan.
Mine was seasonal marketing.
Uh-huh.
And so I like an example would be how like Easter egg candy, or like how Coke, like we'll put like a Christmas tree or a polar bear around Christmas, something like that.
Yeah, no, I think that that's a great type of advertising. I mean, people do it, right? Like how there's Little Debbie. I'm going to talk about Little Debbie for today. Little Debbie has this thing called called the cherry cordial, and they used to only have them once a year at Christmas time, and now they started having them at Christmas and at Valentine's Day. But again, it's like limited in time and quantity, and this is the only time you advertise. And so I think that's my example, is because they advertise for them at that time. But I think the same way that like Coca-Cola has this like really seasonally contented, like the polar bears is a big deal. I think at one point they tried to not do polar bears, and there was a backlash from the population that they wanted the polar bears back, and so they brought them back. I went to the Coca-Cola Museum in LA, and I remember seeing something about it. So I think great seasonal advertising is super successful, and people do that. And how many times a year of like I actually saw an advertisement for FAO Schwartz last year, which is a toy company out of New York. But like I'd never see anything else from them. I never see anything from the rest of the year, but at Christmas time, because they're really famous at Christmas time for Christmas gifts. And so it's another type of example. All right. Thank you, Ethan, for sharing. Who wants to go next? Oh yeah, Alexis. Okay, so I'm going to read Alexis Jenkins. She, if you don't remember, we don't have a microphone. So she used niche marketing, which is getting ads based on what type of niche market you typically shop in or relate to. If you're more of an organic eater, then you might be you might get like an organic delivery option right now during this outbreak. And so that's a type of very like specific type of marketing for a niche market, like organic or vegan friendly or something like that, where it's you're marketing to people for a specific thing. So thank you, Alexis Jenkins, for sharing that with us. All right, does anybody else want to go?
I can share.
Yeah, Justin.
Yeah, one of the ones that I've worked with 4-H was our cause marketing. They've been trying to get into in with more brands that kind of match up with their cause. So if you go into like Joanne, you'll see now like 4-H Clover fabric and like different things like that, that the national branch is like paired up with different companies. You can also see it like they have like these special edition like Georgia boots and different things with the Georgia Boot Company, where they get like a percentage that goes to 4-H. But the like strategy is that like the two like marketing, like there's some kind of synergy between like the company and the organization. And so like by pairing those together, like you both benefit from like that kind of consumer mindset about the company and the organization.
Yeah, no, I think that's super. I think that's a great example. And thank you for not giving the Towns one, which is the one who it's in the document. But like I think that's a great way of like you are tying people's love or devotion to kind of 4-H and wanting to support their cause. And it's also probably driving more people to buy Georgia boots, right? Like somebody who's like, I would buy a different boot, but I really like 4-H. Let's buy these boots because they're fun and I can wear it to my kids' 4-H thing, And so I think it's a great way to market. And we think probably the same way with like probably a lot of like philanthropic things try to partner with people, right? So like Amazon has a thing called Amazon. I know I talk about Amazon a lot. I'm an Amazoner. Amazon Smile, and it's you sign up for it, and as long as you're on your Smile version of the account, they give a portion of the proceeds from whatever you buy to whatever charity you want to donate to. And so like I think the charity I think I'm using right now is I don't even know. I think water. Like I think it helps like provide access to water to clean water to people around the world, and it's usually through like helping get like wells and sanitation and filters and things like that. But that's a type of cause marketing because I'm like, yeah, sure, I can go buy this good at this other website and I buy the good, or I can buy it through Amazon Smile and then help go donate money to people with water. It's like, well, great, I'll partner and I go to Amazon. Well, Amazon's benefiting from their cause marketing. So thank you, Justin, for sharing that. Who's next? Anybody want to volunteer? Nobody's volunteering. Okay. Let's see. Madison, you're on, right? I see you. Yep. You want to go next? If you don't have a microphone, you can just ticky tack tack. For anybody who's like, oh, I don't have a microphone. I don't see her coming off, and I don't see her chatting. So maybe she's writing a chat. So while she's chatting and thinking about it, who else has not gone? Heather, have you gone? Heather's not.
I have not yet.
Okay, well then let her rip, Tater Chip.
Okay. So the one that I kind of found interesting was the inbound marketing. And the example they used was like people calling to check their balances at their bank, and while they're on the call, they'll be like, are you interested in a line of credit or any other things? And to me, like, if I was in that situation, I honestly would be annoyed by that. Like, I just want to do my thing, let me go. But I do see how it makes sense, and how some people, like, that's just a good opportunity to ask for other things and market their other services.
Yeah, I think I do like that it's this call center, but I also like, and I don't know if it relates to something else, so I might be talking out of turn, but I wonder if that is similar, if the same name is considered for like when you go through like at Target and they offer you their Target Red card at the end of the line. It's the same type of thing. Like, I'm coming, I'm buying this thing. That's my action. That's me calling. And then you're trying to sell me a different service while I'm doing that, while I'm waiting. Like, I'm already going to wait for you to check me out. Like, I already have to stand here. You're just telling me about another service, and then, you know, in whatever benefit I'm getting from that. So if, anyways, so thank you for that. That is interesting. Okay. Let me see. Madison, you can just chat in chat box if you would like to send that to us. So she sent a chat to everybody saying her microphone's not working. So if you want to just think of one and chat it really quick to me. Is anybody else not gone? Ethan went. Christopher, you haven't gone, right?
Yeah, I haven't gone.
Okay. You're up, man.
All right, I'm gonna do mass marketing,
Mhm.
and the way it's really described in the article is more about, like, they give Walmart as an example about how they have, like, they're just such a giant retailer, and they're I think it's talking about how their, like, marketing channel is like how many they have so many stores worldwide and things like that. But I was kind of thinking more of like the Super Bowl commercials, and how there's like people pay like insane amount of money for like 30 seconds of airtime just to get like their product out there to the masses.
Yeah, I could see that. Like, I mean, I'm sure that also ties into like some kind of like event marketing or something like that as well. But I think to your point of part of the idea of Walmart is that you're just being exposed to so many different people, right? Like, that's part of the masses that, like, if I sell it to Walmart and Walmart's advertising in whatever way, then you're going to be exposed to so many people who are shopping at Walmart. And so, yeah, I think we could probably tie in things, kind of the Super Bowl ads still, like that they're being exposed to the masses. I think this, and I see Madison's, I'm going to call hers out in a second. I think one of the other things to think about for this is that, the ways that we advertise aren't always put into buckets. Like, we're creating these buckets in these different little names or labels. They can be multiple types of ones, right? Like, you can have the word of mouth, the evangelical one that's tied to the limited, like, you can have this kind of, or to the freebies, right? Like if you think of let's pretend for a second that Nate gives out a free hat to Marilyn, and she just decides she loves his band so much, and she goes out and tells everybody about his music. We don't know what kind of music he plays, and she's going out and telling everybody that they need to listen to it, right? That's both of those types of things, right? Like, that's combined in this idea that he's giving out this free one so that she's wearing his hat, and then she's like, oh, I bought into this and I'm going to go tell everybody about it. And people do that, right? Like all the time, like whether they get the free hat or they're paying for the hat, but we often pay to advertise for other people. Like, we pay to have clothes that have some kind of name on them to tell other people what we have. And so it's interesting how much we market for other people is in a form or fashion. Let's go back to Madison, and I think our final one is she did undercover marketing. This is where a company baits you into trying to hook to get you to do like a small hook or just a small piece of their product. A movie trailer. So like an example would be a movie trailer that they're only going to get you enough to make you want to watch the movie. I think this might be another way of like, I could trying to think of another example of like an undercover marketing would be like, like you convince somebody to like, I can think only of movies and media type of consumption. Free previews are probably the same. And that's a trailer, the example, but like the same thing with like books or anything else where you're like, oh yeah, sure, I'll do this. Here's another one. When you get the free trial for something, any free trials, you're like, oh sure, I'll do this free trial for the first 30 days. And then after that was basically the undercover, was that like, it's no strings attached. You can return it for all your money back. And the likelihood is that you're going to continue on with their service because, well, by the 30 days, you're used to it. And that's partially, which I don't think we talk about in this class, but like habit formation. And what you're trying to do is, by 14 to 21 days, humans create habits. And so if you can get somebody to do your product or do the thing you want them to do for 14 to 21 days consistently, eventually it just becomes a habit. So even though they were like, no, I'm going to return this, I don't need this anymore, they're going to have created that habit. And that's part of the reason why some of these marketing campaigns that, if I can convince you that every time you come to the grocery store, you find this product and you try it and you like it and you keep coming back, then after those 21 days and you're going to come back to the grocery store to buy something and it's not there, you're going to look for it. Right? Even if it's not on the end of the shelf, which is part of the reason why new products, they want to be in your eyesight when they first come out, because they want to get you in that habit formation that you want that product when you go to the store. So I think that's interesting. Thank you, Madison, for sharing that one. And I think that was everybody, unless I miss anybody. Did I miss anybody? No. Yeah, that was everybody. Thank you all for doing that. I mean, it's super interesting. And I think it's such a fun part of the class. Like last year's class, see, you all have this opportunity. Last year's class, the whole entire class, they always wanted to go outside. They wanted to go outside and they wanted to have class outside. And then finally we're like, fine, we'll have class outside. And so I had them take the big board outside for me so we could ride outside and and it was really nice. It was a nice class. And this is what we did while we were outside. You, however, have class outside all you want. You can go sit outside if you want, especially you. Anyway, so sorry you don't get to have class outside. So are there any questions or comments about the 52 marketing strategies? Again, we didn't talk about all of them, but I can't tell you exactly what the question would be on an exam, but a lot of them are going to be something like, an exam question would be asking you to describe something describe one or two of them. So keep that in mind. Jacob, you went off of mute. Do you have something to say?
I was just going to ask about the how would that look on the exam, but you just answered that. So
curtailed you, man. Just jumped up there. I mean, again, like I can't tell you. I don't remember exactly what the questions look like, but I'm not asking you to know all 52, and especially because you're open book and open note, I know you could just like Google them, and so I'll have to think about how to make that an open book version of the question or how we can apply it. But the idea would be to be able to think through some of ways in which like advertisements might fit or how these strategies might work for a firm or might not work for a firm or something like that. And how, or being able to describe a few of them with examples or something. So I think we just had a whole bunch in class. So I think you have been exposed to at least 19 of them, actually 20 because Nathan gave 2. So yeah, so keep that in mind. We have lectures, but it is 3:00, which is, we've been on for a while. So if you all want to take a break, we can have a quick break. We talk about food news. Does anybody else have food news? I have food news. No. Okay, well, my food news, I have 3 food newses. One is that USDA approved negative claims for GM foods, which I find interesting because usually they have to prove claims that you can put something in, like, oh, hey, there's a claim that something is heart healthy or something is, literally the claim that they approved was that this was free from GM foods. And I think that'll be an interesting look at how we move forward, because up until this moment, there are people pushing to say that you have to label something whether it has GM products in it or not, and that's gotten shut down, and it's gotten shut down in a lot of state governments. And I don't know that it went to the Supreme Court. It's probably one of those that's like slowly percolating through the systems. but I do think it's an interesting way that we're moving to some USDA approved a claim that says you are free from it. So even if I imagine this would be somebody who's marketing for like organic or kind of niche marketing that wants to be like, I'm going to explicitly label that I am free from this product. And so I wonder how that'll affect the rest of the market. Anybody have comment on that before I move on to my?
So you're saying that that they don't have to put it on there, but they still can put on that it's not a GM crop?
Yeah, so it would be, yes. So what I'm saying is that they don't have to, so this label isn't mandatory, right? Which is the problem with the other types of laws that they're coming out with, that they were mandatory labeling laws. This would be an opt-in to it that says, as long as you can prove that you're free from GM products, that you can say, I'm free from GM products, and then you market like that. And I would imagine anybody marketing anything GM at some point, I think at first it'll be niche producers, and I think probably a lot of natural and GM foods or organic-y foods will probably use this labeling. And I bet it moves into the mainstream where anybody who's not using any products that are GM will eventually use that label. So it's kind of the backdoor way of getting what these people wanted, which was to say, how do we label what has GM and what doesn't? But it'll do it in a way that's like, a firm can be like, well, I might have no GM product, and GM products even, I just don't have the label because it doesn't matter. Because part of the argument a lot of people are making is that they don't need a label. We shouldn't label because it's an equivalent product. And so this is the backdoor version of be like, oh, sure, you have your equivalent product, but I'm going to say I'm free from it. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out in the marketplace. Okay. That was a little bit more, less fun. More fun is that Keebler is coming up with, their fudge stripe cookies, like a shortbread cookie with like fudge stripes. They're coming out with a strawberry shortcake version of that. And so it's a little strawberry icing across and maybe a shortcakey type of cookie instead of like I don't know if it's shortcake or butter cookie. Anyways, but it's strawberry shortcake fudge stripes. They're coming to a store near you. And evidently, Jacob?
I'm looking at it right now.
Yeah, they look good.
They look okay.
Well, if anybody sees them and you get them, you should tell us if they're good or not. Connor,
we're supposed to be quarantined.
You are supposed to be quarantined. If you happen to go on a food run because you're out of food and you have no more, and you see the crazy new cookies, and you are inclined to get them, don't get them just because I'm talking about them. But this is word of mouth advertising. Who did that one? Did anybody actually say word of mouth advertising? Yeah, somebody did, right? Anyways, Heather? Is it Heather? I don't remember. I forget people. Yeah, this is this version of this. My third food news for the day is that there's I guess a brewery called Smart Mouth Brewery. I can't read my own writing. It's Smart Mouth Brewery, and they created a IPA last year, and it was successful, and so they did it again, and it's called Saturday Morning. And so this year it's Lucky Morning IPA, and so they're coming out into stores near you. Which it's Lucky Charms cereal IPA beer, and so So then this brings me to my other story about, and I swear I told you about it, Black Mountain Brewery or something like that. It's in Colorado. They used to make this beer that was made out of Count Chocula. And so they would buy up all the Count Chocula in town right before Halloween, and then they had an event, and everybody go and drink their beer, and you get a little bowl of Count Chocula cereal. And it was always really fun to go hang out. So I don't think Smart Mouth Brewery is the first one to do it, but I think that they're first one to maybe be mass marketed with it, and they're actually using the labels from the cereal versus like. The Black Mountain Brewery couldn't put Lucky Charms up, or couldn't put Lucky Charms as advertisements up. They could just be like, we use Lucky Charms. They had to call it like a cutesy name where like these people literally have like Lucky Charms on their beer cans. So just saying, in case you're inclined. You're also at home only if you're out of food and you have to go to the store and you see it, and you're inclined, report back. But I'm not encouraging you to leave your house because that's a no-no. Don't do it. I mean, this extrovert's having a hard time with this. Just saying. Anyways, does anybody have anything else you want to chit chat about before we go back to regular, normal, old lecture things?
Did you finish Tiger King?
I did. Oh my goodness. That is like trailer park whiplash. I mean, it is like you start the show and and I'd seen memes, so I knew like some of what was going to happen. I knew Carol Baskin was going to play a role. I knew that he was going to get a throuple marriage. Like I knew like some of these weird things, right? But I started it and it was like all anti big cats, anti owning of these cats, all these other things. You're like, oh, this is like Blackfish. Like I mean, like this is just a different type of documentary. And then it switches over into like the weird cult, like about like the dude with the ladies, and you're just like, okay, well, what is this and where did this come? This was not in the memes that I've seen. And then it switches over to Joe Exotic and his like craziness. And then and you're like, okay. And then you see where like Carol Baskin like continued to escalate, and then he's like, bam, she might have killed her husband. Oh, okay, cool. And then like, let's go back into him. And then he like wants to kill her, and he loses the farm, and he does all these crazy things. And I was just like, what is happening here? And so I feel, does anybody remember the movie? It's Adam Sandler, and he goes back to school.
Billy Madison.
And there's a very end of Billy Madison, and he's asked about something, and he gives this rambly long speech about the little puppy, spotted little porky little
Yes,
puppies.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
And the principal's like, I am now stupid. We are now dumber for having listened to this whole speech. May God have mercy on your soul. And it was longer than that. This is my condensed version of it. I feel like somebody should have gave me this speech for having watched this documentary. Like, thank you for that. I now am dumber for having watched this, and may God have mercy on your soul. Yeah. Does anybody else have comments on Tiger King? We'll move on because blew my little mind.
Have you seen where people think that Jeff Lowe is actually her first husband?
I saw
and
that.
That she just paid him to go and like frame Joe Exotic for trying to kill her.
Because she's not trying to shut down the GW Zoo anymore.
That's so crazy.
And they look exactly alike, like their eyes, perfect match. I
mean, Jeff Lowe is a pretty underhanded, douchey guy anyways. Like, I mean, I mean, that feels like a lot of like intertwined webs to have weaved in order to get to this. But, at this point, like anything is possible. Dude ran for president, like the other guy like shot himself, like all sorts of crazy things happen. There's like drugs and they burned down the alligator house, like, and like I like that like they talk about this throughout this documentary where they're like, yeah, he just like picked everything up and went and burned it, and you're like, and nobody was like, this is illegal, like we can't go burn these things. The feds are looking for, like, none of this sounds like something, like nobody was like, maybe we should move this document over here and hide it, like girl got her arm like chewed off and was like, come back on the zoo with bad publicity, and you're like, I want my flipping arm. Like, anybody else have comments? Matthew was like, hashtag she did it. Anybody want to argue? Yeah. Does anybody want to argue that she didn't do it? No, nobody's.
Well, did you see that Florida's reopened the investigation?
Nathan, if you said something, you're
he said that they reopened the investigation.
Oh, did they really?
Mm-hmm.
That's what I've heard. They're getting a lot of bad heat for, like, I guess people were like calling in or whatever. I don't know how that happens, but like apparently they've reopened the investigation into his disappearance.
I mean, it's suspect. Like, I had a friend that like they were very big on like she did it, and I was like, listen, I don't have all the facts. Like, I don't know all the details. I think that there's a lot of circumstantial arrows that are pointing to her. And so, but I mean, yeah, I guarantee you, just people were calling in and having that much publicity coming down, especially with like potential mishandling of the situation. Like, I'm not testing things or not looking at, like, why was she not investigated more, or was she, and we don't know. I actually read this thing because I went out. I know we're done with our break, but I'm gonna finish this. It was just people who were like basically trying to find him. They're like, hey, wait, if he died, like, let's find the proof, type of thing. And she fired everybody but one dude who used to work for her husband, and that dude's wife wrote into these people and were like, no, you can use my name, I don't care. She basically said that Carol Baskins gave that dude her husband's guns the night he disappeared. Like, that night, like, he came home with a whole bunch of guns and was like, and some ammo, And she was like, why did you give it? It's like, oh, he just doesn't need it anymore. And then bam, he disappears. But you're like, you don't think you'd run to the cops and like, well, she gave us a whole bunch of guns. Like then he left. But then Carol Baskin actually wrote like a rebuttal to everybody. Well, she wrote one and then edited it because she wrote in the first one that if anybody was willing to pay to dig up the sewers, that she would let them. And then I'm guessing somebody said that they would, and she like took it out and edited it and took that out of the second rebuttal, which is now publicly available. But they still had copies of the first one. Anyways, she writes in there about giving this guy the guns, but she talks about, and she didn't know that it was on this other, but she says that she didn't give it to him for like 3 or 4 days, and you're like, suspected things, big arrows. Anyways, so just saying. I'm not saying she did it. I'm just saying that like I'm very inclined to think that there's not a lot of other options for his disappearance.
I don't understand how she doesn't think she's just as bad as Doc Antle and Joe Exotic, because the way that stuff works is like you pay, but then you get like a membership type thing, and then you can come visit the zoo. But like it's weird because you pay to be part of that membership for the big cat stuff, and like you get certain perks when you volunteer. So it's like she's just as like crooked as the other 2 guys are. She's very like underhanded. She's doing it in a more legal but like gray area way than they are.
With the name of it being in for good things. What kind of product value do you think she's providing?
An
emotional.
What is it? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think she's tying into this like emotion of like that we care about the cats, right? Like she's feeding off of that, right? That like these are for the good cats. I also imagine that like there's probably a little bit of the epistemic, or not epistemic, the epistemic, like that you get to do something. Oh my goodness, I'm losing all my words. That like there's a value that like you're there and you're getting to touch and play with the cats, which is what they're all like going for, right? Like they're all like giving you this ability to have this experience. But then like and then you go away, which is why tiger cub petting is, why people want to do it, because it's fun, like, and it's a baby tiger. This thing could eat you once it gets bigger, and soft. Who doesn't like baby animals, really? Any of you are like, baby animal, get out of here, I don't like it. No, see, right? Because we're all inclined to like them. Anyway, sorry, my dog's underneath and she's like nosing me. Okay, we can go back to class. Thank you for bringing that Tiger King. I did watch it. I did finish it, and it was, that's how I felt about it.
Time you wish you could get back.
I do slightly. I do think that at the end of the day, like, I don't think I'm better for having watched it. I think that I am aware now of the cultural phenomena. But did I tell you the joke thing at the beginning of class about the girl who, I don't remember if it was this class or earlier class. There's this like video that's like, it's like this woman who like went back in time 4 months and was like talked to January her and was like, hey, do you want the good news or bad news about 4 months from now? And she was like, the good news. She's like, it's great for climate change. Anyways, the very end of it ends with like with what do you know about large cat operations? And it was this, and that's how it ended, because it's this phenomena that we're all stuck at home quarantining, and what's entertaining us is a polyamorous, gay murdering, zoo big cat guy. like this is the guy that's entertaining us all. Okay. All right. So let's get back into the actual class, because I'm sure you're wanting to. I'm dying to get back to it. It's just riveting. So let me open up my chat so in case anybody talks to me, I can see it. Okay. So we had went through advertising, those different types of marketing types, and that basically is starting to, that ties into our marketing campaigns that we had been talking about. And one of the things that I want to flow off of that is this idea of creating content and what the aim of that content is, right? So we just went through all of these different types of marketing strategies, and we think about, you can create these different types of content, but the content is related to what your aim of what you're trying to do with that. When Nate is trying to give out freebies, he's trying to get the name of his band out in the world, right? Like he wants to give, what's the name of your band? Here, I'll tell it to 20 people.
Called the Downstairs,
like downstairs.
So we basically broke into the basement of our duplex, and so we're downstairs.
Yeah. Okay. So the downstairs, right? Like if he's giving out his cool swag for downstairs, the downstairs, and he right, like he's doing that in order to get name recognition. He's trying to get new customers, right? Like he's trying to get new people involved in his music, and so that's an aim. Now the aim for the example we gave earlier for like Kraft Heinz, right, and wanting to or Coca-Cola seasonal advertising, right? They're not trying to get new customers at that point. They're trying to drum up business. They're trying to, give you these feelings. They're trying to retain you as a customer and encourage you that this is still a product you want. And so we think about this relationship between the aims of our goods. So marketing aims are important for determining content types. So this is all what we just said, which is marketing aims are important. So we have to figure out what we're aiming, and that's how we're going to decide what our content types are. So when you're thinking about your products or you're thinking about what you're going to do for your final project, think about this, right? Like it's going to be what your aim is. Because if you come at me and say that you're going to do some kind of trade show, but your content is, or your aim is to get mass audiences, that's not going to get you mass audiences, right? Like those are two different aims, and that's not the right type of content or the type of marketing strategy that's going to get your aim, right? And so I'm going to go through just a quick graph. Does anybody remember? This is a quote from The Office, but they talked about how much it costs to get a new client than it does to retain a new one. False. It's 5 times more. Oh, did somebody say it? I can't tell if somebody was about to say it. Okay. So the idea is that it costs 5 times more. It costs 5 times more to get a new client than it does to retain one. So we're talking about this, it costs 5 times more to get a new client than it does to retain one. So when Coca-Cola is advertising for their seasonal thing, one, it's to drum up business, right? Like, and part of that is maybe trying to like drum up some new customers, but they're not having to spend as much money as somebody who's a brand new soda manufacturer who's wanting to try to convince people to buy their product instead of Coca-Cola. They're just retaining you as a customer. They're reminding you that they have this man, I use epistemic wrong really. Anyways, they're reminding you of this olden time. And they're reminding you of this emotional value of like tying back to the, that this little polar bear. They're reminding you of all of these things, or of your childhood and of Christmas's young past. The Santa Claus that gets put on the I see you, Tonks. And so when we think about this, we think about these different types of costs. And so hold on. Here's one more fact about this. Facts. Bears beats Battlestar Galactica. Increasing customer retention by 5% can increase profits by 25 to 95%. Which is a huge range there. Let's be clear. I get it. That's a huge range. But increasing customer retention by 5%. So keeping customers from changing products. So when I think of Coca-Cola, one customer deciding one day to go buy a Pepsi product it's not hurting Coca-Cola's bottom line, right? That much. You choosing today to go get a Mountain Dew instead of a Coke, right? But if you choose to become a Pepsi person, you're really hitting the bottom line for all of the times you're going to ever buy Coke. And if you think of the number, so increasing customer retention by 5% can increase profits by 25 to 95%. And that's just on a reoccurring basis, right? Like we think of how often. So if, so I just use Coca-Cola, which you buying a new Coke is not a huge profit maker for them. But think about it like tractors, right? Like you switching from being a John Deere tractor person to, I don't know, a Ford tractor person is probably a big hit to John Deere's bottom line. Okay. So we think about this kind of retention. And so what it does is it brings up this dichotomy between, or not dichotomy, this relationship between things that are costly and things that are valuable. And so let me just draw this up here, and we're going to have this as costs. And let's do I hate this the other way. I like this as high cost, low cost, and then this is feasibility. So this is high and low. So this is this relationship between cost and feasibility. So how easy is it to get a new customer versus how costly is it to get a new customer? And so I have this other graph, and it is not totally, I don't like it as much. And so I try to like redraw it. And so this is not like the best way of doing this, but this is what you get. So we might think that like somewhere out here might be a new customer. It's a high cost, but it's a low feasibility. It's going to cost me a lot to try to convince you to switch products. It's going to cost me a lot to try to convince you that that you should buy. What is it? It's not. I want to say Kubota. It's going to cost me a lot to convince you that Kubota is a better tractor than John Deere, and you should buy Kubota over John Deere. Right? That's not. It's going to be really hard for me to convince a John Deere consumer to want to buy a Kubota tractor. Right? So it's a low feasibility, and I'm going to spend a lot of money doing it. Now, if I do, and I can live up to the things I promised, that's a huge win for me, because now you're a new customer for me, and maybe now you like it, and you say, oh, now I can do. We'll buy this in the future. It's the same way as, has anybody ever really liked the brand of something, and then all of a sudden you tried like the generic version? You're like, oh, this works just as good. It tastes good just as good, and all of a sudden you started buying the generic one because it's cheaper. I mean, thank you, Nathan. Like, I mean, I totally done that, where I've been like, oh no, I buy the brand, and they're like, oh well, this tastes just as good. I'll just eat this now. That's a problem with, right? Like, because me buying it one time wasn't the problem. Me continually buying the cheap brand versus your expensive brand is the problem to them, right? Because now they've lost their profits in the long run. Oh, this class is almost over, isn't it? 325. Okay, let me finish mapping this out really quick, and then we can talk about it next time. This is somewhere around here is going to be recapture lost customers. This is if you're gone and I'm having to recapture you as a lost customer. It costs me a lot still, because basically I'm having to reconvert you over back to me, but you've already experienced me before, so I don't have to spend as much money. We might have somewhere up here, which is threat of loss. This is this like this world of I'm having to pay to make sure that I'm not losing everybody in terms of customer relations. This is business that I'm being, as a business, that I'm being lost to the ethers. That like think about shoes, like think about big brands, right? There's Nike, there's Adidas. Think about another brand, Reebok. Reebok is a known brand, but it's pretty much lost. I mean, I don't see a lot of advertising for Reebok, right? It still exists, but like for the most part, when people talk about shoes, I hear a lot about Nike and I hear a lot about Adidas, and I don't hear a lot about Reebok. And maybe that's just because that's the market I'm in or the market that I'm seeing. But that's an example of that threat of being lost to the as a business to kind of the world. And so you're having to spend, it's going to be medium cost, and there's this feasibility of you getting lost to the weeds. I know, I'm 2 more seconds. Let's say something like here, which is new business from existing customers. So this is getting new business from people who are already your customers, right? It doesn't cost me a lot, and it's pretty feasible. It's something that I can do pretty easily. It's to convince you to buy something else from me, right? I'm going to keep doing John Deere because I keep seeing Matt, and that's what project he has, and so that's what I keep thinking about. If you're a John Deere and you buy John Deere tractors, right, it's probably not hard for me to also sell you a John Deere hat, right? To get new business from you, to kind of sell you one more thing, It's probably that, and I probably don't have to spend a lot to do it. I send you one of those, was it Brandon talked about the email? I don't remember who told me about emails, but whoever did the email marketing, right? It's probably not hard. I'm gonna send you an email and say, hey, look, here's some new products. I bought my Jeep. I get advertisements from Jeep all the time. They're like, hey, do you want to buy Jeep branded things? And you're like, I'm not gonna wear a whole bunch of Jeep products, but that's a total way. It's typically pretty low cost to get a high feasibility. And the last one we're gonna talk about is retention. And what this is this low cost and high feasibility of just keeping your customer, right? So when we think about this idea of getting a new customer versus retaining a customer, this is what we're talking about, is that it costs so much more over here to get a new customer versus being up here to retain somebody. And it's a huge amount of feasibility difference. But I can't focus all my time on getting new customers, because once I've lost you and you switch, it's going to be here. Let me change the color here. Here. Like once I've lost you and I switch, it's going to cost me this much to recapture you. So what I have to do is, you can't just have a total advertising campaign that's always focused on new customers, because you're going to lose people. And the idea is that you have to have a balance between keeping people happy, getting new customers, selling to new people, right? Because we said increasing profit, customer retention by 5% keeps your profit up. And so you're always kind of juggling getting new people and keeping people you already like. And we can come back to this and talk about the pricing and content management next class on Thursday. If y'all have any questions, stick around. I'll be on here for a minute if you have to answer any questions. And thanks for your time, and thanks for coming in with 52 marketing strategies for the class today. And have a good day. I'm going to leave this up for a minute in case anybody is still writing it down.
So on the project, you basically want a 3 to 5 page paper plus a marketing, something, a flyer, an ad, something like that, right?
Yeah. So the idea would be that it would be some kind of ad or whatever, or, I knew somebody last year, they literally had one and they just Photoshop some, do whatever works for you. Some kind of ad, and then the 3 to 5 paper is just describing all of those things that justify that ad, like that. Who is it marketing to? What kind of customers? All of those things that were initially part of the project, because you were going to present those things, and you just now we're just have to tell me in a paper form.
Cool. Yeah, I've got something I'm going to do it on. So I've actually got a product that I'm patenting right now.
Well, yeah, that's cool.
So I'm going to do that because it's actually relevant.